And what's happening, everyone? Welcome on into the Check Your Brain podcast. My name is Tony Mazur. Yes, that Tony Mazur of Tony Mazur's Check Your Brain podcast. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, Rumble, or my Twitter account at Tony Mazur, TonyMazur. If you are only listening right now, hit the like button, give me a 5-star rating if you want to, send a comment. And if you want more from me, Tony Mazur, go to patreon.com/. Tony Mazur, TonyMazur, and you get episodes about 3-4 times a week, maybe 5 days if I'm feeling generous, with a $3 tier, a $5 tier, and extra content in the $10 tier. But you could subscribe for free, and it just makes it seem like I have more subscribers than I normally do. Again, at patreon.com/Tony Mazur. Joining me is one of my most frequent guests, one of my good friends in this space. His name is Bruce Hall. He's back on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, at Bruce Hall Sports. And he has some very, very interesting stuff that he has talked about in the past. And Bruce and I got together. We've talked on the podcast. So we've gone over formalities and everything about him doing a sports show back in the day. And he would have me on as his Cleveland correspondent. And then I realized that Bruce is really into the real story about what's going on in the country. And I'm like, oh, wow. So he's not just sports handicapper guy. He's full on, like, red pilled, eye opening, everything that's going on in this universe. And I was so happy to still keep in touch with him and have him on my podcast several times. So Bruce, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks a lot, Tony. And you're just getting younger looking, and I've got this 70-year-old beard going here. But
Well,
listen,
I mean, you're 40 years sober, and I'm about
wait, but you
40 seconds
might as
sober.
well be sober. You're drinking Coors Light. I mean,
Well, that's
I can't believe they charge you for that.
Well, you got sober before the days of the IPAs that are
Oh,
like
let me tell you.
10%, that you
Yeah.
drink those and you're right on your ass tomorrow.
My son, he's into that stuff, but I got to tell you, I couldn't afford to drink beer now. I mean, when I drank beer, it was $1.99 a six pack.
3-2 beer.
Huh?
Were you getting the 3-2 beer?
Well, we're getting 3-2, yeah, in a college town. We were. And even if when it wasn't 3-2, it wasn't ever $3 unless it was a Michelob or Heineken or something like that. But I quit drinking because it was the best thing I could have done in my life, and I like to drive a lot more than I like to drink. So I mean, I would drive to Ohio in a heartbeat, because it's not that long of a drive, and
There
I'm
was an
in
old there was an old
Virginia.
Robin Williams had a joke. He says, "I'm a reformed alcoholic. I don't drink anymore. I'm the same asshole. I just have fewer dents in my car."
That's yeah, Robin Williams. A lot of people think he's still alive, and I wouldn't doubt if he was because he was one of these guys that was just a super guy. He took care of so many homeless people in his life. I mean, people that worked with him said he spent more money on people on the street than he did on himself, and I could believe that.
Oh
No,
yeah, I can too. Yeah, he really did seem like the real deal. He just had his share of demons. And
well,
speaking of, by the
they
way, how
all,
about this for a transition? Let's talk about demons. Let's talk
huh?
about things that are going on in the news. Now, it's been I think about a year or so since I've had you on, and a lot has changed. A couple of things have changed in the world, but I wanted to talk about the nothing that came out of these binders from Epstein, where it's just nothing but black ink redacted through everything, to the JFK files that were released recently. That unless if uh, you would think there's new information, unless you realize there was a rampart
Not if you knew me.
1960s.
It's all old stuff. I mean, we were reporting on people who had gone to Epstein's Island. We were reporting on people who had been uh, tried, convicted, and executed. When I was talking to you 3, 4, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that's pretty much when all that stuff started. It started when Trump went into office in 2016 because he promised that he was going to do things even then. The problem was he didn't have enough good help, and some of his own guys ended up kind of screwing him over. And but to make a long story short, we're watching the movie. I told you it's just a movie. And one thing that you got to know about this movie is they're saving Israel for last. And
Yep.
that's
Oh,
one of
yeah.
the things you have to understand about this movie. A lot of people that we think, were our allies and friends, it's just the opposite. I mean, Russia, ever since they got rid of the real Putin, because this guy's not the real Putin. If you look at pictures of this guy, I mean, it's not quite as bad as Biden. The pictures of the Biden, the dead guy they elected. I
With the
mean, they
rubber mask.
elected a dead guy. That's how you know they fixed the election. I mean, he only got about 40 million votes in reality. But after they filled all of them out and they screwed, Trump real well, they won by a little bit, but took what, a month to get it? Well, people like me were a little upset, but when the powers to be didn't get upset, I just had to get patient. And that's all you can do. Look, all we want's the truth. That's not asking for much, right? It's real easy when you're looking for the truth because when you find it, you don't have to lie when you're telling the truth, you know?
The interesting thing, and you've been around long enough to hear the acceptable conspiracy theories around the Kennedy assassination in
Oh,
1960.
I mean,
We have it went from, oh, it's Lee Harvey Oswald in the conservatory from over there, and then it was, well, there were other factors at play. Could it have been Mossad? Could it have been the CIA? Could it have been the Cubans? Could it have been this? Could it have been that? And it just seemed to me as time went on, the conspiracy theory, it was like accepted in the same way with Epstein the last 6 years since he was dead or whatever was going on with him,
yeah,
that it became an acceptable conspiracy theory, hence the term was coming from the Kennedy assassination, that we the president of the United States was murdered in front of people. We still don't know, and we just shrug our shoulders going, well, oh well.
I pretty much knew about that not long after it happened. I was lucky enough when I was in college to have seen a guy that came down from the first book that was ever written about the assassinations was a book written by the guy that ran his campaign in New York, and he was an attorney, and he was phenomenal, and that was maybe the best book ever. But if all of your people that are listening now, and you, Tony, write this down: JFK, all caps, X. Go to that and watch that documentary done by a guy who is a Hollywood producer, and he swears that he didn't die. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of these white hats because there's a lot. You've seen everything. You know, JFK is related to not only JFK Jr. and so forth, but he was related to some people overseas too. I mean, there's so many stories, and a lot of the people I deal with on a regular basis, they believe JFK Sr. was alive up until not too long ago. He was born in 1917. So I think he lived to be 97 or something. But there are pictures even of Trump talking to this guy. And he had on a veteran of foreign wars hat and he had on a real nice jacket. And I mean, if you look at him, I mean, he looks like JFK, 90 years old. Good. Just watch the documentary JFKX. It's half hour, 40 minutes. Phenomenal documentary.
I'll check that
Because
out.
listen, we're watching a movie. How many times did Trump say central casting? Central casting. He'll go to a meeting and there's a couple of admirals in the room. He'll go, "Oh, Admiral, you're not him. Central casting."
They
I'm
say
not.
about Tom Homan, where Tom Homan is like, you look directly out of central casting as a guy who's going to be tough on the border.
Well, Tom Homan's a real deal anyway. He had that job when Trump was in office before.
Yep.
I love that guy. He goes on Laura Ingram's show all the time, and he is the real deal. He's the guy. The thing I like about what Trump did with winning this election. Now, you can talk about what's his name, Musk, all you want. Elon Musk, whether that's him or not, I'm not 100% sure because he's been popping around for a long time, right? And a lot of people will say he got awful tall recently, but Elon Musk is the guy that you want to straighten out your business. And our government in our country is a business. And look how much they're finding trillions of dollars. They're saying it's tens of billions. It's going to be trillions and quadrillions before they're done. They're finding people with Social Security checks that have been getting checks sent out, and these people have to be between 110 and 150 years old. Well, you know how much I get Social Security? I'm going to tell you, $1,200 a month. I can't live off $1,200 a month.
No.
Now, the reason I get so little is I was self-employed. If I had been a school teacher, I'd make twice as much. Okay. My wife will make a lot more. She's working till she gets to be, 66 in 8 months so she can max out her Social Security. But Social Security, I don't even count on that. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't, you just can't do it. But I like what I'm seeing. I've gotten very patient. I've just gotten patient and I'm just waiting
Well,
because
that's because I think that's where there's a little bit of impatience as far as the leaks that came, or I mean the binders with from Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, and I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's just the show of those conservative influencers with these binders, like we got them, we got the Epstein thing, and you look at it and it's just black ink everywhere from everything being redacted, and it was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing show. And I'm trying to give her and trying to give Kash Patel the benefit of the doubt right now, but especially because you're dealing with bureaucracy. You really are, like Elon Musk said, using a chainsaw and cutting through all this and getting rid of what we've now seen as anywhere between 60 and 100 years of thick bureaucracy of government, empty government suits with government coffee on the table. At some point, yeah, it's going to take, it's not going to change overnight, but I just thought that was an embarrassing show from those influencers a few weeks ago.
I'm not. I literally, with those people involved, I don't worry about it. Like
I just happen to notice a lot of them are let's just say on the same side as our greatest ally.
Russia.
Mm,
That
yeah.
is our greatest ally.
Well, yeah, I'm
Just so you know.
close. Oh yeah. No,
Well,
I
let
know.
me tell you, they are our ally to the max. And you know who else is our ally? China. See, they've been playing China and North Korea for decades as the bad guys, the guys with the nuke, the guys with this, the guys with that. It's none of that. It's none of that. None of those guys want to do that. None of those guys can even do that. Not all of them.
Mm.
It's going to be our kids, Tony, even your kids, if you have kids. I know you're married to a beautiful woman. I see your pictures all the time.
Here's hoping we're having kids. We'll see.
Yeah, you guys are everywhere. But anyway, uh, you know, uh, our kids are not going to have an Internal Revenue Service to get ripped off by. I mean, they've been stealing money from us for over 100 years. Well, no, almost 100 years, 1938. And it was when and so many lawyers have already said, well, they basically it's unconstitutional to have that. Same way with the with the Fed, the Federal Reserve. It's a joke. That's a lot of people think that's why JFK, quote unquote, got killed, got murdered, because he wanted gold standard money, and we've been for 100 years we've had oil money. It's just money that's off the sweat of Americans,
Well,
and
do you
that's why.
believe what they said that JFK wanted AIPAC to be registered as a foreign agent, and that could be one of the reasons that.
We're saving Israel for last.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, they're not good guys. Trust me.
Now,
I mean, I mean, hey, listen. If you look at the history of how we got into the position we did with Israel, think about it. I mean, and then look at the United States Congress, look at the United States Senate, look at the United States uh, entertainment field, look at the United States banking field. They're all Jews. I
yeah,
mean, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with
two
that,
point four
but that
percent of the
isn't
pop.
right
Wasn't it like
because
2.4% of the population, yet made up 50-60% of Joe Biden's cabinet?
well, Joe Biden, I mean, the original Joe Biden was one of the most corrupt, dirty, evil people. His wife and his baby. I mean, read about that. I'm not going to even say anything about it. Just read about it. And by the way, Biden's gone. He's gone. He's been gone. So's Hunter. He's gone. Everybody you're looking at's got a mask on right now. That woman, that doesn't even look like her anymore. I
It's
mean,
like
she
one of
was
those. It's like one of those Lon Chaney Jr. life masks you get at the back of like Famous Monsters magazine.
they have film of Biden walking away from like a show where he showed up and did something, and you would expect, you would never expect to see him in a parking lot walking with one guy, but yet there is film video of him doing stuff like that. No Secret Service, no nothing. It's just that guy, you
Yeah,
know. But that's okay because it's that goes to show how smart some Democrats are. I mean, they voted for a dead guy.
yeah. Well, I
How
mean,
could you vote for a dead guy?
too big to rig. Now, I want to ask you because when we talk about Epstein, we talk about Kennedy. I think so many people focus on the death, quote unquote, of what happened, and I'm more interested in the players around it. So let's start with Kennedy.
Which
Who are the
Kennedy?
who are
JFK?
JFK?
Okay, you
Who are
can
the
ask me any question about that,
who
and
are
I'll
the
answer.
Dulleses?
Well, Alan Dulles, as you know, was the head of the CIA for several years. His brother was the sheriff in Dallas. Okay. Duh. Well, see, and it was like, you see Woody Harrelson doing all his stuff. There are so many. Woody Harrelson's father was Charles Harrelson, who was one of the three bums that they took off that train right behind, where the shots came from. After they were taken in, let me tell you something. You know, John F. Kennedy, if JFK is not true, if he didn't live through that, if he wasn't involved in even making it look like, his head was blown off and Jackie went back on the car to do it. And even if you don't agree with that, what happened was everybody killed Kennedy. There wasn't anybody that wanted him alive. The Joint Chiefs of Staff they wanted war. They only make a lot of money when we're at war. The international bankers, the world bankers, only make a lot of money when we're at war.
Only 3 years after Eisenhower had that great military-industrial complex speech.
Well, he was a good man, okay, and he warned us all. Ike did. As a matter of fact, Ike, you almost didn't see him after that, except
Okay.
I mean, because the media just cut him out. You would see him at the Masters because he was always a guest and he always went down there. But no, they just boxed him out, But he told 100% the truth, and we're still there. Look at all of the companies that have the trillions. They're all companies that make money building rockets, building airplanes, building ammo, building guns. That's what they do.
Yep.
And We all know it. We just have to make sure that everybody knows it. Everybody doesn't know it because you know what? Most people aren't like you and they're not like me, Tony. They don't want to know. We talk about that. They don't want to know. They just want to be okay. They want to live to be, they want all their kids to get jobs. They want everything to be okay, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Sometimes you have to do a little work to
I
keep
saw a
the,
picture from about a year ago of a young Liz Cheney. And
oh
Liz Cheney,
God.
she was a little kid sitting on the lap of Gerald Ford. And she's like, "Oh, we need to get back to the good old days of republicanism and conservatism of Gerald Ford." And I'm thinking,
He was,
the Gerald Ford on the Warren Commission.
yeah,
Talk,
we don't
talk
want
to
him.
talk to us a little bit about Gerald Ford.
Well, Gerald Ford, you know, for the most part, that's what he was. I mean, he was. They were all in on it. I mean, look at LBJ. I mean, nobody was more corrupt and more evil than Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Oh,
Lyndon Baines Johnson murdered his sister because she was running her mouth. He had her killed. Mac Wallace was like his best friend, and Mac Wallace, they think, probably killed Martin Luther King. There's a good chance he did because he was there at
and
that time.
Lyndon Johnson, very proud, very staunch Zionist.
Well, he also won the 48 senatorial election with just under 485 80 fake ballots in their
Got on the
same
ballot box.
handwriting in a little county just north of Mexican border. Look, I mean, he fixed his way in there. There's a great book. I've got three copies of them, and two of them are autographed by the. It's called Texas Looks at Lyndon. It's one of the best books you'll ever read because all it's got in there is everything he ever did wrong. Think about Bobby Baker, what he had Bobby Baker doing. You know what they were stealing money from for years? All the machines that did cigarettes and sodas and all that stuff, all over Capitol Hill, all in downtown Washington. All they did was steal money. That's all they did.
I find that era so fascinating because you obviously see the changing the 60s with Vatican II and the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement, the race riots and everything. And then there was a little bit of a backlash you saw in 68 with Nixon. But it just seemed that Nixon the entire time, just like with Trump in his first term, was nothing but pushback. So you go from Johnson to he has Spiro Agnew under him, and then all of a sudden Spiro Agnew gets cast to the side over something ridiculous.
Yeah,
Gerald
he
Ford
was.
comes in, and then he gets to be the heir apparent after they absolutely railroaded, and we can say this publicly that they completely railroaded Richard Milhous Nixon.
Well, absolutely. And he was a lot better president than a lot of people give him credit for, but he knew all about Dallas. He was at the party. He was at, you know who had the party? The guy that owned the Dallas Cowboys, Clint Murchison.
Mm.
Clint Murchison, he's dead now, but he had the party the night before the assassination. It was a Thursday night party. And they were talking, this woman that was Lyndon Baines Johnson's girlfriend was a prostitute. And she you know told everybody over a period of years exactly that everybody at that party knew what was going to happen. Everybody at that party. George Bush Sr. was supposedly in Houston, Texas, but he wasn't. There's pictures of him in Dealey Plaza right next to the Texas School Book Depository standing there.
Mm.
He was CIA. He was Zapata Oil. He was the reason that everybody got all over Kennedy for the Bay of Pigs, for letting all those people get shot down. It wasn't Kennedy's fault. It was George Bush's fault. The name of his boat. There were two boats that they had for the Bay of Pigs operation. One's name was Houston, and one's name was Barbara. And Barbara isn't Barbara.
I've
You know
heard
what
this
I'm
one. It's
saying? I
very.
know. I
It's
know
like
you know what
what's her
I'm
name?
talking about. I hate to even say it, but it's true. She's long gone, but she's a dude. but so are a lot of world leaders. Look at Macron's wife. Macron's wife looks more like a guy than he does.
Well, I think it's Candace
It
Owens has
was
done a
like
great
Big
expose
Mike.
on that.
Big Mike's Big Mike.
What
He's
about
a
and
big
Bill Gates?
dude.
Bill Gates'
Huh?
wife. Bill
Huh?
Gates' wife.
Oh, well, his original wife was murdered with him, with his original person in India. Do you know why?
No, I do not.
Vaccines. They took a
Oh,
bunch of vaccines over there. They gave all these kids vaccines. This was in 2013, and they were both on what is it called? You know, don't worry about it. But
adrenochrome.
no. I'm thinking in terms of ancestry.com. All you had to do is put her maiden name in there, and she and Gates were killed then. The Indians didn't let them get on their plane.
Mm.
They murdered, they killed 3,000 children or 31,000 children in a period of 10 days with vaccines in India. Indians don't mess around
No.
because they're here and they're good people and they love Trump, by the way. They love Trump, you know, because they've
It
seen good and bad.
well, that's what's interesting about the whole Trump phenomenon is that all those names that we mentioned, the neocon, the Republicans, quote unquote, since Eisenhower. So, you had Nixon, but he was ousted. And then eventually you have all these other periphery figures who ended up rising to power, whether it's David Rockefeller, whether it's George
Yeah.
H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. I just saw a picture the other day. Somebody posted it was from the 2012 presidential debate, and it was Mitt Romney and Barack Obama shaking hands. And I'm thinking, they're like, why can't we get back to those good old days where
They're
two
on the
men
same
and
team.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the same person, just one's a little more tan.
It absolutely is. And Mitt Romney, by the way, he's been gone for a while, in my opinion. I even saw him at an airport, and it wasn't Mitt Romney that I saw. In my opinion, it wasn't. No, but what ends up happening is even Reagan. Reagan came in. Listen, interest rates when Jimmy Carter were president, I know because I got out of college in 1975. I couldn't buy a house, Tony. You know why? Interest rates were in the mid to upper 20s for houses. I lived with my mother. I was married to my first wife. I taught school. I made a blistering $7,000 gross, coaching 5 sports and teaching and driving a school bus in the morning. I knew I didn't want to be a teacher at the end of that, but I also knew I wasn't going to buy a house unless I paid cash for it because you can't afford. I mean, even at 7, 8%, you're literally a slave to the banks. You're a slave to the banks. And that's what we're getting away from. That's
No,
what,
well, yeah, well, usury needs to be banned. I mean, that's
well, not only that, but Nasara is going to fix everything. And see, I'm being very patient. I'm waiting. And
it's a
Mr.
tease.
But let me tell you, President Trump has mentioned that there's not going to be an internal revenue service. There's going to be an external revenue service. And that makes sense. We just don't have to put any money in the hands of all the thieves anymore.
Yeah.
And that's going to make a big difference in this country. Not so much for people my age, but for our kids and our kids' kids. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be good. We need to get moms home. We need to get a dad home or a mom home and have one person work, or have one person work full time and another person part time. So you know what I'm saying?
Well, what was that? Because it was in your lifetime that we went from being a place where a dad, a husband, can provide for a family of three, four, five kids in uh, kind of like an inner tier suburb, a house that can, maybe one couple of the kids have a bunk bed, the youngest kids, but live comfortably where mom is a homemaker. And then all of a sudden, within it seemed like a decade, we're breaking through the glass ceiling. And now, if you don't have a double income, the husband better be bringing in a ton of money.
Well, it all comes down to one thing, and Rockefeller said it in an interview a long time ago. David Rockefeller did. He said, "Well, we knew we had to get women to work because we could make twice as much money off of them with Internal Revenue Service. You know where the IRS sent all of our money, right?
Where's that?
It went to the Vatican. That's where it went. It went to the Vatican. They found quadrillions. This is what Trump's been doing with his group of military people from all over the world, not just the United States, not just Marines, not just Navy, not just Coast Guard. I'm talking about, you know, Great Britain. I'm talking about France. I'm talking about India. I'm talking about North and South Korea, Japan. These guys have gone all over the world and they're attacking all of these DUMBs, underground manufacturing, DUMBS, underground tunnels. And you know what they're finding there? Children. It's the biggest business in the world, child trafficking.
Hmm.
Child trafficking. And guess what in the United States, guess which state has the most per capita missing children every year for the past 20 years?
Per
Just take a
capita.
guess.
Mm. Yeah, because people don't know per capita.
Well, that means, according to your yeah, how many people live in your
I,
state?
I'm not sure what.
Virginia,
Wow.
Virginia. I live in Virginia. We have two of the worst, nastiest senators in the history. One Kane was Hillary's running mate. What a slug he is. And
His
you
son
look
is
at it.
Antifa.
Let me tell you, you get a half hour away from Washington in any direction. It's all conservative patriots. You get anywhere near DC, it sucks. It's just a horrible place to be. It's
when
one
you
of the
when you
reasons
drive
we're in
down
Richmond.
77, like I the closest freeway to where I'm broadcasting is I-77. So when you take that, you head on down
77, yeah.
from Cleveland all the way to Columbia, South Carolina, and you go through that little panhandle of Virginia, and it's amazing when you think about how all of this stuff that comes out of Washington D.C., Loudoun County, right around there, and the rest of the state has to deal with that.
Well, and Loudoun County used to be a really conservative area, but they've built it up so much. Now it's not. Now it's definitely, just the opposite. It's completely liberal. Not completely, but a lot of it. They did get Glenn Youngkin he got in as governor because of all the stuff they were doing. They were. I don't even want to think of
That was a
it.
lot of money, when they always talk about the Koch brothers, but Miriam
Right.
Adelson and a bunch of others who were more kind of they fenced it when it came to donating money. And Miriam Adelson donated like $100 million to Trump's campaign or something.
Well,
And
Soros gave all that money to people, to the guys running for. Uh, he did it to the guys that were the district attorneys for all the different counties,
mhm.
and I mean, by doing that, they let all these guys go. They don't put anybody in jail.
Oh
That
yeah.
has a lot to do with the same thing that we're seeing at the border. You know.
Now what? Well, you bring up the border. It's where I was going to next. I remembered hearing from Ann Coulter maybe a decade ago, and they said that because they've been using the term, oh, there's 11 million illegals who are in this country. And Ann Coulter is like, I think it's got to be about 30 at least.
You
And
heard what Trump
since
said.
Biden took over, it's probably double that at this point. Now, I brought this up. I don't care what people call me or whatever. I live not far from Cleveland, but I'm in a suburb, and I walk into a grocery store and I don't hear English. I live right here. What happened in the last decade that I go when I go to the baseball field, we go play softball on Tuesday nights. Over here, are the kids playing baseball? No, it's cricket.
Yeah,
What's
they're
going
Indians.
on here? That it's
Yeah.
not just the big cities with these enclaves. It turned into the big cities and the small cities, and everywhere you go, it's da 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 da. I'm like, does anybody here speak our native language?
Well, listen, Tony, nobody would ever say that, having that, these people from out of this country that are here illegally, they were letting them come in. Look who your governor was for 8 years or 12 years, or he was horrible. Your
Oh,
governor.
well,
You
we've had a
you
couple of bad
hated
ones. We've
him.
had Mike DeWine, we've had
Yes.
Taft, we had John Kasich up until recently.
There's all kinds of guys. There's all kinds of people in Ohio, even though Ohio is literally kind of a really pretty solid conservative area. It's not around the cities. It's out in the country. It's out in the suburbs where you
We have
get the
88 counties, and I think 5 are blue, and it's all the big cities. It's Toledo, it's Columbus, Cincinnati,
yes,
Cleveland, Akron, and
yeah,
that's it. The rest of
and
the state is deep red. It's
well,
crimson.
state. We're getting back to states. We're getting back to states. Things are starting
Federalism.
to happen. The chemtrails. I've been talking about chemtrails for 20 years.
Sure
Now,
have.
all of a sudden, 25 of the states, after me screaming, I mean, 25 of the 50 states have put together bills that on a state level to get rid of chemtrails. Tennessee's already done it. Texas has already done it. Guess who hasn't? Virginia.
I remember last
That's
time
where the worst ones are.
I was in DC back in, I think it was December 2019, and I remember I texted you because we're not far from you. We're in Short Pump.
Oh yeah, in
So
Virginia, in Richmond.
yep, yeah, outside of Richmond, and I was there and remember texting you because you're in DC, you take a picture of it's the White House, it's the Washington Monument, and of course it's just chemtrails. Just every time you take
Everywhere.
a picture of the sky, it was just nothing but chemtrails in the background.
Well, the healthiest thing in the world for you, and we're finding out a lot. I'm sitting here with all of RFK Jr.'s books, Vax Unvax, The Real Anthony
I wanted to
Fauci.
ask you about him next. Yes.
Oh God, I wanted it. I'm glad he didn't run for president, and I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad vice president wasn't offered to him because he's going to make so much more of an impact doing what he's doing now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's going to save so many millions of lives of children that it's not funny. If you're young, and even if you're not young and you can read and you've got, children and grandchildren who are having babies, you got to read Vax Unvax. That's the best book you'll ever read about vaccines. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote it, and it's amazing. And the book that's almost exactly the same, only it kind of was the long story about it was The Real Anthony Fauci.
Yeah. Oh,
He
yeah.
wrote
Well,
that
and
book.
I got a chance to interview. I've talked to Dennis Kucinich, who used to be his
Oh,
campaign manager, and I talked to Tony Lyons, who's the publisher of that book, and he was explaining to me on this podcast about the media blackout over this. And why is this? Everybody knows what the reason is. Roger Ailes has come out. I think Tucker even mentioned it. He said you cannot talk about this of pharmaceutical companies because they make up 70% of our ad revenue
too
on
bad.
news. So
Yeah, they murder everybody too.
oh yeah, I mean, this was a thing. Like I saw some moron on Twitter recently saying like, "Well, has anybody actually like watched a TV ad of something and they went out and bought a drug that they saw on TV?" And I'm thinking, yes, they have
All the time.
all the time. What do you think Ozempic? What do you think is going on with these people who are taking this stuff and their faces are shrinking? They look like a used cigarette. And at some point, Bobby Kennedy his I guess introduced some legislation to say we are banning this from TV like it was up until about 1995. We are not advertising this stuff on TV. And what happens? Well, then eventually Fox News goes away, and MSNBC, and all these other they all scatter somewhere else. I agree with it. You say, well, that's not libertarian of you, Tony. I don't care. I'm not a libertarian anymore. To me, the fact that our children, that you and I have been poisoned for decades, whether it's microplastics, whether it's what red dye number whatever or yellow dye number this, all of this stuff that's
Half,
in,
more than half of a damn grocery store. You got to stay away from those aisles. All
yeah,
you got
I
to
mean,
do is look at something. If it's got more ingredient, if you need like your reading glasses to look at the ingredients, don't buy it. It's just
the
got too
fact
many
that bread,
chemicals in it.
the fact that bread has more than three ingredients in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't eat, we buy our bread at a bakery that a lot of people, private people and restaurant people, buy from. And that's the only thing to do. No, I tell you, you get back to, our leaders have been our biggest problem. No doubt about it. I mean, you can't even talk about the presidents. But you know what? Even if we work, Tony, in our areas, our counties and states, our cities, we still have got to get the truth out to everybody, and they've got to understand. And you know what? Nobody can read anymore. I just read something that in the state of Virginia, something like at the end of 12 years of schooling, only 40% can read,
Yeah.
efficiently enough to pass a reading test. What are we doing to these kids? I mean, why aren't we reading in school? Well, we should be
The
reading something
Department of
every
Education,
day.
the Department of Education was created in 1979, and we've gone from first to what, 24th or something ridiculous. And what has this done? It's done nothing but increase the academic state of getting more jobs and more social workers and everybody involved. And it's increased the cost of government funding into these schools that do absolutely nothing. And of course, it's increased tuition and Pell Grants and everything like that. Yet,
Yep.
what hasn't it increased? Test scores, literacy rates, nothing like that. We are getting dumber when honestly, we should be living in the greatest times.
Well, we can't even compete with European. Well, definitely not in the Middle East. We can't compete with the Japanese. We can't compete with the Chinese. I'm talking about our kids. I'm talking about, reading, writing, and arithmetic. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
can't compete with anybody anymore because all we do is send kids to school so mom and dad can work. They don't need to be people that are homeschooled. You know how long they spend on academics homeschooled? Let's just say a fifth grade homeschool group, 4 hours max. In the afternoon, they go out and do stuff.
Because we decided to continue this Prussian model where kids are in
Yeah.
school 7, 8 hours. Well, isn't that the normal time of a work day working at the factory? Well, I thought those days are done. And especially after COVID, you're seeing a lot more of these parents saying, whoa, 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 wait a second. What are you reading in school? What did your teacher say? What banner is behind your teacher when you're trying to learn some lesson plan? No, we're taking you out. And yet they're still doubling down, and Randy Weingarten and everybody else, which, they're all very unhappy about this, but it seems like what Donald Trump and what Doge and what everybody is doing is it's ripping off these scabs, and people don't know how to take this. They don't know how to take what's happening with these USAID cuts and how we are spending our money and what we are getting in return for it.
All they do is wash money. That's all politicians do.
Laundering money, yeah.
Listen, there's 454 senators and congressmen, something like that. I could be wrong. Might be 434, but I think it's 454, right? I would say that 400 of them are corrupt, and the others are probably pretty decent people. And I'm telling you, that's never going to change until we change it at the local and state level.
Correct.
We got to do that. You got to do it in Ohio. We got to do it in Virginia. We got a lot of work to do in Virginia. I don't know how, who knows how long I'm going to be around, but I'll do everything I can. General Assembly in Virginia. Do you know what the University of Virginia just did, which is a really good thing? They did away with DEI. The University of frickin' Virginia. That is like one of the most liberal colleges in Charlottesville's 95% liberal. And it's 45 minutes from my house in Richmond. Richmond's about half and half. Richmond used to be 80-20, good guys.
Yeah.
Not anymore
Well,
because they're all moving south.
Yeah, correct. If people are
They're
moving with their feet and they're voting with their feet. Now,
nude. Yeah, you're right.
as far as just stuff abroad a little bit, because we see what's happening in Gaza. Uh,
Hmm.
you mentioned about Putin and Russia being
Yeah,
an ally as opposed to being the enemy. That there's still this, they're still talking about I think a lot of it, like what's his name, the former Anthony Blinken, that they're still mad
yeah.
about a Russian pogrom that wasn't in the 1642, and they're still really mad, and they have this Russophobia. Zelensky, this guy who's
The
essentially the
clown.
Jon Stewart, who's playing
He,
playing the piano with his penis and dancing
he's a
around.
comedian.
And here's the best part: Zelensky, before he became the president of Ukraine, he was a comedian, an actor who was acting as the president of Ukraine. So
Yes,
all of this is just, it's fake.
I've got the whole thing here somewhere. I mean, it's unreal, but we knew that. We're watching a movie. All they're using the Ukraine for is the Democrats were washing cash with it. The money goes
BlackRock.
over there, and guess where half of it goes? Comes back to everybody on Capitol Hill. It's a Democrat, and probably a few Republicans too. They're using it to wash money. That's what they've been doing with the Ukraine forever. Let me tell you, technically, the Ukraine's still Russia.
It
I
is, yeah.
mean,
People
and
don't know
listen,
that. They think Putin just woke up 3 years ago and said,
well,
"I want to start a war over it." No, this has been going on even before Victoria Nuland in 2014. This has been going on
oh God, how
1997
sick
with
is she?
Brzezinski. It's
Oh, speaking of guys, there you go. She's a crackhead.
it
She's,
it. Oh yeah, Mika. Yeah,
you
well, I
know
was
that,
talking about
right?
dad. I was talking about the dad.
Oh, okay. No, you know what? It's the same everywhere. They want our money. And listen, look they knew they weren't coming back. The Democrats knew they weren't coming back, you know, 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They started making plans so they'd have tons of money. And look how old a lot of the Democratic leaders are. They don't have many more years left on earth. So they're trying to cash out as good as they possibly can, as fast as they can. That's so obvious. And what I don't understand is why they still talk about all of this stuff on television because anybody, I mean, it's all it's all what's the word I'm looking for? It's all fake.
Yeah.
It's a fraud. It's just a big fraud. Everything about the Ukraine is a fraud.
Well, yeah,
Everything.
that's all it is. But would you agree? Because I see what's
Iran
happening.
too, to a certain extent.
Because
Iran
what are we?
too.
There's conscripting armies in Ukraine and Russia of young Christian men, and you're seeing this of more Christians who are being slaughtered in Syria and Armenia right now. And it seems,
Technically, maybe.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it
I
seems,
don't know that for sure.
no, yeah, but it seems to me, looking at it from whether what's happening in Gaza right now or what's happening in the Donbass, it seems like it's almost the same war. It's pushing more of this international Jewry.
It's fake. It's money washing time. We're washing money. They want our money. And you know what? Trump isn't going to give anybody any more money. They're
Well,
not getting
that's
any
what they're
more money.
concerned about, is that, oh, Trump is a Zionist, Trump has this, and it's like, I think Trump's enough of an astute businessman that he's not somebody who's going to be taken in by some kind of cabal.
No, it's not going to happen. And everything he's putting around him right now. I mean, even like they made a mistake the other day. Evidently they had too many people on a call, and that guy from the Atlantic who hate is a diehard liberal scum. He,
Oh, wait, oh, you mean the guy who served
yeah,
in the Israeli army? Okay,
yeah. I mean,
Jeffrey
but but
Goldberg.
but Trump just said, yeah, well, everything's okay. I mean, I just told him stay in the same room from now on. Nothing on the phone, just get everybody in the same room, and that's all he had to do. He's got a lot of youth working for him right now. A lot of young people. They're
By the
gonna
way,
make, huh?
do you think that was an accident, or do you think
Oh
that?
yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know
No,
if there
no,
was.
he set him up. He set him up, but you can't get set up. When somebody's on a call, like let's just say it's me and you, and somebody that we know is just looking to bust us sideways, right? You and I aren't going to talk about anything that's going to set him off. But when you have 13 or 17 people on a call, all it takes is one person to make a mistake, and that's what happened. But I don't doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I didn't know if Mike Waltz or somebody who was a part of that was because we
Ah,
saw that
he's
in the first Trump administration with all these leaks, the Omarosa and everybody like trying to go in there, and then of course John Bolton. My God, thankfully we've
How
now
did he get back in good graces with Trump? I
that
don't.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
either. I
you know
don't
what I
either.
think it
I
is.
I thought Bolton might be gone. You know what I mean? Gone like GAWWWWN.
Yes.
Gone. Yeah, I'm surprised he's still around. Maybe he's not. There's really no way to tell. All I can tell you is the best people that do kind of have the knowledge that I do, those people all say the same thing watching a movie, and it's about over. And I got to tell you, I mean, I couldn't be happier. I mean, imagine if when I knew Trump won, you could bet in Vegas Trump was minus 170, so you had to bet 170 to win 100, and she was plus 155, which I think is ridiculous, stupid money. And the next day, the bet got paid off. And I knew,
Really.
and Vegas
When
never,
was that?
the next day, it was paid off for Trump. And that never happened. The time before, it was a month and a half before they paid off. And look who they paid off to.
Yeah.
Paid off to Biden. So, but anyway, no, things are going pretty well. A lot of the stuff the Kennedy assassination. I mean, that happened right after happened a week after my 10th birthday. That spring, my father died of a heart attack in our front yard. I was 10 years old. I made it up my point because my father was a Navy man. He liked Kennedy a lot. A lot of the patriots loved Kennedy. It wasn't
Well,
like
my
Democrat,
family, that
Republican.
being Catholic, it was like, hey, we finally have a Catholic president. And my dad would tell me in school they would have Kennedy for president signs in the school. The nuns would put them up. And, I mean, they didn't
He
know
was
about
an ama
they
he
didn't know
was an
about his
amazing guy.
philandering.
Think about what he did for us. He got on TV for us every week. I mean, he was on TV a lot. And he wanted to talk to the people, and he didn't like all of this crap that was going on, the secrets, right? The secrets.
What about Operation Northwoods?
Well, let's talk about one that continues to go on. What's the one where CIA and Operation God, I can't think of the name of I got it right over here, Mockingbird.
Yes, Operation Mockingbird.
Operation Mockingbird's still going on. CIA crap. Just they can do anything they want with the Washington Post, the New York Times, and they get money. They were getting money from the government, then they could turn that money over to the newspapers, and then they spread it around.
Yeah, it was
They're
wasn't that
washing
interesting?
money.
Wasn't that interesting? Bob Woodward. Like,
Oh
what
God.
was Bob Woodward's history before he became this roving reporter who got the story of the century? Gee,
He was
let's.
CIA. He was CIA. One of the best books you could ever read was a book, the Mosaic Mary, or Mary and the Mosaic. It was about Mary, what's her name, a woman that was murdered in 1964 walking down a canal, but she was like one of JFK's other women, and she was pretty amazing. And if you ever get a chance to read that book, read that book. But it was a lot about that. The guy that was like their head guy, the general manager of the Post, Ben Bradley.
Mhm.
He was also best friends with. He was best friends with John and his wife, and he was best friends with everybody in the CIA.
Yeah,
And
and then you had Mark Felt.
well, yeah, Mark Felt. That was a great book. Have you ever read his book?
No, what about G. Gordon Liddy though?
Well, I got to know G. Gordon Little.
I figured you would. I wanted to ask you about it.
You know why? Because he lived over by Tantallon Country Club in Oxon Hill, Maryland. And he was a member of the club where I was the sales manager in 1985, maybe six. And he would come over Sundays, he and his wife, and I would sit with him. He would invite me over and I would sit down while he ate brunch. And he was a pretty remarkable guy. He was very nice to me. I have to say, I'd be a little scared of him if he was after me, because
I heard a story that he said that if they were going after him, that he said I would be at this street corner. I would be here at this corner. Don't harm my family, my kids,
right,
wife, anything like this. If you're gonna take me out, just take me out. Don't blow up my house. Just I'll be on the street corner and it's
right.
one bullet to the bald head of mine.
Well, that's Gordon. That's Gordon, and I got to know him a little bit. Tantallon Country Club was the name of the country club, and some beautiful homes down there, and it's still a nice place. Got a nice little golf course down there, 20 minutes from Old Town Alexandria. But I got to tell you, he was an amazing guy to talk to. And he didn't really share too much with me. But you know what I did learn from him? That he said that a lot of people think I'm this real bad guy and I'm, this and I'm that. Let me tell you something. My wife is twice as bad as I am. And he meant that. She was a tough lady. But no, that was a good time. No, you know what, Tony, we've managed to, there's still a few secrets out there, but if we always search for the truth, and if we don't, I learned a long time ago, and I'm sure you have too, because you've had a lot of good mentors along the way, in radio. I can only assume everything else, mom and dad and stuff like that. But the only thing I can tell you is that don't ever care what anybody thinks about you. It's not important. What's important is what do you think about yourself? Are you doing what you think is right? And if you're doing what you think is right, find the truth, and that's all you got to do. If
I'm trying
people
to do
get
it right
mad at
now.
you for finding the truth, and they're not people anyway, they're just, slugs.
Well,
No.
yeah, that's that NPC, the non-playable characters. You just see people
Yeah,
just they wake up in the morning and they just get through life. And I want to get to the bottom of why things are happening. Now, I'll ask you this, and we can wrap on this because this could take a couple
sure.
minutes.
Yeah,
It
we've
won't
been
take an
on,
hour.
you and
Uh,
I talk for way too long sometimes.
So what we see now, like I mentioned about that Mitt Romney, Barack Obama
Right.
picture, and there was also another article that came out around that time in 2012 of the new Republicans of Scott Walker and Paul Ryan, and
Oh,
again,
Paul Ryan, he's gone.
it's the same people over and over and over again. And yet now you have Trumpism, you have MAGA, and then you have a little bit of a bench now with JD Vance, who I again had on this podcast a number of times.
Yeah, and I'm not. Yeah, I'm still. I'm watching him.
Yeah. But like as far as the conservative or at least MAGA movement going forward, you do have a little bit of a rift. And we all know it's because of our greatest ally, because you have more of the Tucker clan where Tucker and Candace Owens and other people who are a more, I hate saying dissident because at one time, just a couple of years ago, we would call us more dissident right-wing voices. And then you have the Ben Shapiro's, the Daily Wires, the Dave Rubin, the Fox News types, and it seems like a lot of them are compromised by a certain country the size of New Jersey. Now, what's the future of the conservative movement as far as our greatest ally goes? Because it seems like they have a lot of say in our politics.
Now, when you say our greatest ally, are you saying the
I'm using it in
Israelis?
quotes.
Israelis?
Yes.
I would tell you right now to get ready for what's getting ready to happen. In the near future, all of this is gonna be brought to the front.
Do you think
All
do you think
all of it.
Netanyahu's going to get Gaddafi?
No, no, Netanyahu. I don't even think that's him. Netanyahu is not a good guy. Netanyahu, if you do some homework on him, right? Like read some of the stuff that I read from time to time. He's a bad guy, and so are the rest of them. Look, 9/11 was an inside job. I'm sorry, it was
Was
an
it
inside.
Larry Silverstein? Is that what his
Yeah, 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 yeah. Amazing. Everything had a a terrorist clause in his
Insurance, yeah.
freaking thing. Let me tell you something. Hey, that was the George W. Bush's son was in building 7. 7 came down. They all came down. They were all demolition blasts. There were no airplanes. Not one airplane.
We're distracted by the two towers up here, and we're not focused
You're
on that.
not looking at the size of the airplane. Listen, there were a group of Israeli Mossad students, quote unquote, that were in that building, in the both buildings, for like a year doing stuff. They were getting ready. They were making sure that with the right blast that thing would come down. A plane couldn't do that. It was impossible. It would have just stuck, It would have just kind of gone like that. No, it showed it going in and nothing. It just, nothing. There's so much film, it's not even funny. No, that was an inside job, and that was so we would be at war for the
Yeah.
next 5 to 10 years, so
And
we could
it
so they
turned
could
into
make more
20
money,
something. It
huh?
turned into 20 something years. And then,
Well, exactly.
and then as we know about October 7th, we've heard about the dome and everything. And it seems like that certain people in Israel had a little bit of knowledge beforehand that this would happen, and then the retaliation that we have seen, where it's a literal. I'm going to say it right now. I know people are not going to be happy with me, but a genocide that they're conducting right now because of that.
I think I agree, and let me just tell you, um, we're dirty. I mean, our politicians in 2001 and going back, what, 20 years, corrupt as you could get, corrupt as you could get. I almost feel bad for Rudy Giuliani, but I think he's gone too. I don't even think that's Rudy. Because Rudy knew, hey, you think they could keep that from Rudy Giuliani? All of that? No, no. And all of the people, they don't even really know how many people died. They really don't. They're not sure how many people were even in there. But I have a good friend that's had cancer for over 20 years, 25 years, and he's a fireman in New York City, and I love him to death. And he has somehow or another managed to live this long with throat cancer, and just a wonderful guy. But those guys, they didn't know it was fake. They didn't know that we were behind it. You know, I mean,
No,
we were
I,
behind it. It was us. Think about who was in charge then. Cheney. I mean, why do you think Cheney disappeared? He's been gone. And his daughter, maybe they left her alone, but she knows. That's why, nobody takes any crap from her on the Hill. They just, I don't know that there are so many people, Tony, I could tell you, not sure. I don't think that's him. Blah, 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 blah. Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan and Mike Pence, long gone. Long gone. You know why? They tried to steal the primary from Trump. They
sure did.
almost had the votes to do it. But then after Trump became president, they were still trying to do stuff because Trump found out about it. And there's, if you read about Mike Pence enough, you'll find there was a time when his plane went one direction and never came back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Didn't
that
believe
wasn't
that.
Mike Pence on January, whatever it was, 6th or 8th or whatever.
Now, what was that in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, where
You know what? You know me. I'm a Trumper, right?
Mhm.
I'm not convinced that it wasn't Hollywood because let me tell you, and it might have been President Trump, but there are they have many body doubles too. They have to because it's dangerous, right? So I'm not convinced that was even him.
That was on the stage, or that he
See,
wasn't
I think it
acting
might have
himself?
been. It was just too much like a movie. And look at those girls. I mean, the federal marshals. or the Secret Service girls. That girl weighed 400 pounds.
Oh yeah, the one who was busy
She
doing
couldn't get her. She couldn't get her gun out of her
yeah, that was embarrassing.
holster.
Yeah.
I
But
don't.
I think a lot of it is that you think if they're willing to kill or at least try to kill a
Oh
president
yeah, and
in
they are.
63 and in 1968 and other times, what wouldn't they try? So
Oh yeah.
it seemed to me that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of questions, but the one good thing now, especially when you talk about 9/11, is if you talked to me 20 years ago about loose change, I would have said, "Oh, get out of here with these conspiracy theories." Today, I'm willing to accept and have some plausible deniability on a lot of this.
I would give anything if it wasn't true, but I can tell you that so much of this stuff is absolutely happening on a regular basis. Now, we're pretty far down the road now from 9/11, 25 years,
Mhm.
right? I mean, but there are still people out there that think that three planes crashed that day. That's absolutely the one that landed in Pennsylvania. They never found anything. That definitely, that was just something they dropped, a bomb or something. But in the Pentagon, really? Yeah. There are 4 or 5 videos of people that were first on, arrivals with Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 9. No body parts of the plane anywhere. A
Yeah,
lot of people, I think that was also manufactured. It was a blast. It was a blast. And quite a few people did get injured, but the day before they couldn't find $7 trillion. They
well,
couldn't find $7 trillion the day before, and they had a press conference about it. And then the next morning it was 9/11.
they're willing to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right?
Well, you know what? They have used our military as guinea pigs for all of these shots that people end up getting sooner or later. I mean, they've used our military for guinea pigs, our government, for as long as you could use them as guinea pigs.
That's right.
It's ridiculous,
They're
you
still
know?
doing it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
they are. They are. Hey, I have a close friend.
What do you think MK Ultra was?
Oh, well, I mean, it's absolutely happened because a lot of those guys in MK Ultra came from Germany. If you read here, hold on, I'm going to grab this book. Hold on.
Check Your Brain
If
podcast.
you read Operation, look at this. I'm reading this right now. Operation Paperclip.
Oh yes.
What a great book, but it's not 100% true. You know why? Because I'm finding a few little things in here that are not true that I know are not true. But it's pretty damn good because when when the Germans were like they knew they had lost the war, they were leaving. They were and we had a list of names. The British did and we did. And we went and found all these guys. Hey, the Germans were great at making poisons to kill people and
Yeah.
stuff. So we ended up bringing all those guys back, and they worked for this. They worked for the CIA and the State Department. As a matter of fact, CIA wasn't the CIA until the 50s, I guess, because it was basically the Great Britain group. I forget what they're called, but that was how the CIA started.
MI6.
Yes, MI6 and 5. MI5, MI6. But this book is really good. It's hard to put down when you start reading it because it's
Oh
good
yeah.
stuff, and it's true because that's how MK Ultra got started.
Well, I should be having a guest on, by the way, I think maybe even next week, talking about the CIA's influence, not just about rock and roll, but about pop culture, what they've been doing since
You're not
19.
going to believe this. Oh, he hung up. It was Kevin Kiley calling.
Really?
Yes, you're
That's
one
interesting.
of your old mentors.
I used to be his producer back
He's
way
doing
back
he's
in the day.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what? He's a good guy. He's doing good. We still play golf,
Good.
We as long as we
Is
can
Mike
walk.
Patrick still around with you guys?
Yeah, but he's not playing golf anymore, but he's doing okay. He's doing okay.
He's in his
Mike's
80s
Mike's in
now.
his 80s,
Yeah.
but he's doing great. I used to it was great having those guys around, on a regular basis. You know what it's like. They've seen everything.
Oh yeah,
They always have great stories. But hey, Tony, it's always a pleasure. I love talking to you about all kinds of
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, Bruce
And
Hall
you know
Sports.
what? Hey, listen, we'll be patient, and if
Mhm.
something killer happens, we'll talk about it. If you ever want to talk about when the names do come out, and they will, about the people who have been tried, convicted, and executed, that have anything to do with adrenochrome, it's called what do they call that? Um, I can't remember what they charge him with, but they charge him with a crime that is they execute him.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of that happening. And it's going to continue to happen because they're not, when you mess around with children, when you kill children and use children's body parts to make money, you need to go to hell as quickly as humanly possible.
yeah.
And
That's well, the, well, we could do it. We have a completely other podcast on talking about the dangers of what they've been doing to children and what we're dealing with right now. But hey, Bruce, I appreciate you.
yeah, no, no, thanks for having me. And listen, you and your wife come visit sometime. We'll
Oh,
see.
we're definitely making a trip. We're gonna make a trip to Virginia, Maryland, all the whole
Might
area.
as well,
Go
Yeah, it's
follow
not,
Bruce. Go follow
huh?
Bruce at Bruce Hall Sports on Twitter, and
Yeah, at Bruce Hall
it's a mix of
Sports.
what we've been talking about, as well as some sports stuff, as well as some handicapping. So go follow him over there, and follow me at Tony Mazur if you haven't already. Thank you,
By the
everybody,
way,
for
I'm a paying customer. I think it's $10 a month I've been
you
paying
sure
for
are.
them.
You sure
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
I
Anyway,
I drop
great
more f
talking to you,
bombs and
Tony.
everything. I drop more f bombs. I talk about other things on the
Yeah,
podcast.
I don't curse much anymore. I'm a Christian, and every year I get a little bit. I try to be a little bit better. I used to. Every other word was an F bomb
Oh yeah,
back in the day.
I will. What I do is I use it to punctuate a point, and I have people who are like, "Oh,
Absolutely.
you curse too much." I'm thinking, do you listen to other podcasts where it's every other word that people use? When I do it, I'm like it's used as a punctuation. That I'm like I'm punctuating this point. I'm like, I could say that I'm so angry or I'm so. That's the only way I do it. I don't just do it frivolously and gratuitously. So,
Yeah, no, I hear
but
you.
I get into other topics over on Patreon that you are indeed a supporter of
Oh yeah, yeah,
other.
absolutely, man. I've always been a big supporter of yours. We should have a show on Sundays.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You had Chuck
Yeah.
Todd and all those.
Hey, you know what? You don't lose any money when you're just throwing the numbers out there. But listen, take care of yourself, and I'll tell Kevin that we did this thing. Hopefully he'll be able to go in there and see it.
Yeah, sounds good. And
All right.
take care everybody for enjoy yourselves and with you and the family and
Thanks.
everybody listening and watching this podcast on YouTube, Rumble, YouTube for now after some of what we've been talking about, and on the podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever, as well as Patreon, patreon.com/Tony Mazur. Thank you everybody for checking out the Check Your Brain podcast. We'll be back with you next week with another free episode of the Check Your Brain podcast. Bye everyone.